Welcome. Mhm. Welcome. Welcome, everybody out there. Welcome to the law, your money, and you. And I'm Roberta Saphire. I'm an attorney in Sharon, Massachusetts for a long, long time. And here's
Hello,
my
everyone.
co-host.
I'm Camille Barron, a financial organizer and healthcare advisor, also in Sharon, Massachusetts. And we have a guest who has been with us, I believe, twice.
Right.
This is his third time. He's going to talk to us about a lot of interesting things that are going on in the world of counterterrorism, etc.
Yeah, the funny thing is, before I introduce him, Commissioner David Cohen, what he talked about the last two times, I believe it's still going on today. But so we'll let him
Well,
tell us.
the world has not changed very much in the time since we talked last, which I think was maybe 4 or 5 months ago. It's gotten more complicated, largely because of our very tense relationship with China, which has really become, the issue of the day for many in the national security arena. For corporate America and for the person in the street, because what happens in China has a big ricochet effect back here on home. But our tensions with China are extremely high and intense, and was the focus of much of the discussion during the G7 meetings in Hiroshima this weekend. And we can go through the background of what's driving this very tense situation.
Please.
It has many faces to it. An important face to it is the ambitions and goals of China's President Xi Jinping, who is essentially has been raised to the level of president for life in China. That hasn't happened since the days of Mao Zedong. He was reelected during a party congress back in March of 2022. He was extended to a third 5-year term, which is really unprecedented in the post-Mao era, and that was reinforced at the National Party Congress in October. So President Xi is essentially the president for life in China.
I just have to go back that we didn't do our normal introduction, and although I'm sure that everybody knows you, I just want to put in a little background how you were at the CIA for 35 years, and then you were handpicked by Commissioner Kelly after the 9/11, and you put all kinds of things implemented. Can you just bring us up to today? Because we don't know what you've been doing lately, so that we want to know too.
Well, more recently, when I left the NYPD in 2014, I joined a firm headed by Mr. Hank Greenberg, Maurice Hank Greenberg, who's an American iconic hero. He was the founding father of American International Group. But more interesting for many people is that he just turned 98 years old about 2 weeks ago. And he runs his firm with a solid grip. And but most engaging is that at the age of 18 and a month, he landed on Omaha Beach on 6 June 1944. Fought through World War II. Was one of the original U.S. military personnel to open up Dachau the death camp in Germany, and then fast forward to the Korean War. He was drafted into the Korean War, where he served with great distinction and going on, rather than accepting the soft job, which he had that option. he opted to serve far north on the Korean Peninsula, and so he's a remarkable individual, and it's an honor to work for him, and to say that I even know him. People line up just to shake his hand. It's really wonderful. But anyway, so that's what I do now.
Fantastic. So let's go back to China.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Not
I've been to
literally,
China.
but let's hear more.
Have you been to China?
No. Have you?
We were about 20 years ago,
Yeah, it's
26
changed a lot.
years ago.
Changed a lot since then. So the bottom line on China is President Xi has very assertive ambitions for China. He is determined to make China what I would call the principal global influencer, supplanting the United States in technology, in terms of its economic clout, its technological clout, and its military clout. The flashpoint in the relationship is the island of Taiwan. Taiwan, for those of you who go back many years, that's it was originally the island of Formosa, where Chiang Kai-shek and his military withdrew to after essentially losing the Civil War in China to Mao Zedong. In any case, President Xi has made very clear and very unambiguous that his legacy will be driven by his focus on bringing Taiwan, which is as a integral part of the Chinese motherland, and he feels intensely strongly about that. He has threatened he's either going to do it by virtue of military force or by virtue of suffocating Taiwan into submission, or Taiwan essentially says, take me, I'm all yours.
Sounds a lot like Russia.
Kind of like Russia. It's similar but different. Taiwan is about 80 miles offshore of mainland China, separated by the Taiwan Straits and the South China Sea, which has become really a hotbed, highly militarized with naval ships on our side and their side. So that's become the flashpoint. Highly militarized area, highly polarizing issue, and considered the litmus test for autocracy versus democracy globally. So we don't know where this is going to all end up, but on the U.S. side, we've managed to bolster South Korea, to build up its military capability. Japan, in response to the threat from China that it sees, is vastly changing its post-World War II policy of pacifism and a military that focuses only on defending the Japanese islands and the Philippines as well. So there's kind of like a crescent around China now that is, they've all signed on with us. They understand what they see as a serious threat from China under the auspices of President Xi. And so Taiwan has a great significance. Taiwan itself is a very vibrant economy, about 23, 24 million people. They're highly democratic in their perspective of life. It's a vibrant democracy. That's what I mean. I don't mean democratic in the sense that we in the United States look at democratic. It's a vibrant democracy. There's no interest in becoming an embedded part of what Xi calls the Chinese motherland. So we're in for a very complicated time. China is a real force. Its military capabilities are expanding rapidly. Its Navy, its Air Force, its nuclear triad, its global reach, its economic power, its technological know-how. So we face a real challenge there, and the question is how do we deal with it? And so far we've done all right, but we have to stay on our toes.
Let's
Boy.
talk now about Russia and Ukraine.
Well, Russia and Ukraine is a much different, because there you actually have an invasion by the Russians into Ukraine. That was in February. Actually, it was on the birthday of your co-host's dog, February 24, 2022, February 24th. I happen to know that her little pooch was born on that day. In any event, here we are about.
I'll tell why later.
Here we are, many months. Let's see. So we're in May of 2023. So it's been about March, April, May, about 15 months later.
Mhm.
The Ukrainians have done a remarkable job. Before all of this happened, the perspective on Ukraine within Europe itself was not very robust. There was a lot of uncertainty because there was a lot of corruption. There was a lot of this, a lot of that. So there was no deep embrace of the Ukraine by the Europeans generally. But that's all changed now as a result of the really remarkable job they've done. All the assessments back in February 2022 is that the Russian military, special forces, and intelligence resources would be able to topple the Ukrainian government within four days or a week. And before that, the whole thing would be under the control of Russia. Well, it didn't quite happen. The Ukrainians really demonstrated a strength, an inner strength, and a depth of strength that it forestalled that assessment, which was just dead wrong. They proved to be much more versatile, resilient, dedicated Ukrainian nationalists than anybody gave them credit for. On the Russian side, there was an expectation that their capabilities, their military force, would essentially steamroll over Ukraine. Those two forces, Ukrainian weakness and a Russian strength, would be the demise of Russia. Well, whoever made those assessments, and they were made basically on both sides, were dead wrong. So the Ukrainians have really done a remarkable job. The Russian military proved to be I wouldn't say toothless, but deficient across the board. It wasn't what anybody really anticipated.
Is this a case of the United Nations standing in back of Ukraine?
Yeah. I mean, much of the Western world, as you and I know it, the Western democracies, for certain, are very supportive of Ukraine. They're providing them billions of dollars, lots of equipment, and what have you. But where we stand right now is that it's almost like World War I, where there's a standoff on both sides. There's about a 900-mile, what I would call, line of separation. It's a sphere that goes from the northeast, south, and then to the southwest. It's kind of like circular like that. And there's a long awaited, and that's on the eastern portion of Ukraine. Again, if Ukraine looks like this, and this is the east, it would kind of look like that. So, and interestingly, the Russian involvement in Ukraine in a military sense goes back to 2014, when with Russian support and military and otherwise, Ukrainian separatists in areas, let's call them provinces, called Luhansk and Donetsk, basically took control over about 25 or 30% of those two Ukrainian provinces. So they already had a chunk before the invasion. And of course, Russia had taken control of Crimea in 2014. So this portion of Ukraine had already been essentially under the thumb of Russia even before the invasion. Since the invasion, which has been a failure from a Russian perspective, they've moved that line a couple of, maybe 100 miles. And so you've had all this death and destruction in exchange for 100-mile movement in the lines. So we'll see where this ends up. My own expectation is that this line of separation will probably persist for a long time. Neither side seems to have the capacity to push the other side very far. The Russians certainly can't move forward very far against the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians have been planning a counteroffensive to push against the Russian forces for the last several months. It's called the Spring Counteroffensive, but it hasn't launched yet. We don't know if it ever will, and we don't know if it does get launched, will it be successful and make a big difference in exchange for the lives that are going to be lost. Meanwhile, Russia has been brutalizing, Ukrainian critical infrastructure. This little tiny town, Bakhmut, in the eastern portion of Ukraine, before the war, it had a population of about 70,000, probably 700 people there. They essentially flattened it, and they've been fighting over it, for the last 2 months, maybe longer. So it's very brutal and accomplishing very little movement. And I personally don't expect it to shift very much, but every talking head has a different take on all of these things. So I mean, it's a very nasty world we live in, between China on the one hand and Ukraine, Russia on the other, and there are other threats that are lurking out there that are very dangerous, and that would be North Korea, which is a very serious. It doesn't get talked about very much now because it's kind of the media, it's kind of consumed by Russia, Ukraine, and China. But North Korea is headed by a real strange character, President Kim. His father was the president. His grandfather was the founding father of North Korea, and of course, we had a war with North Korea back in the early 50s. That accounts for the division of the peninsula itself. But North Korea, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, boy.
I mean, do you want me to go on, or
No, I just was
Yes.
just remarking how it's amazing what's going on. That's why I went, boy. I wasn't calling you.
Well, I mean, we got all these problems, but
I know. I know, and we were going over. I can't believe the time goes so fast with you. You're absolutely so fascinating and interesting. What I want to find out too, on our other shows with you, we were talking, it had just happened with the whole thing about defunding the police and this and that, and it's like, are they infiltrating our country with this that we have to worry about them attacking us, a democracy. Before
Well, I think,
you were talking-
actually, I was just going to move into that after a brief note on North Korea, but we could do North Korea some other time.
Yeah,
It will be there, no question about it.
Oh.
As far as crime in the streets, yeah, be careful. That's what I would recommend. It's kind of gotten out of hand, and all of the what I would call the individual controls that we all grew up with, and
Hmm.
we knew you don't do something, you don't do certain things, you avoid so that seems to be completely out of the window. I'll give you one example. I mean, I still work in New York 1 day a week. I'm going tomorrow, in fact. But my wife, we lived in New York City in Manhattan for she lived there for 16 years, and she won't go back. I mean, she knows New York, Manhattan like the back of her hand, but she's concerned about the confrontations she might encounter with homeless or mentally ill, and it's a real problem. But even in Washington, D.C., it doesn't get as much play because it's prettier, it's more protected by the media in many respects. But the homicide rate in Washington, D.C. is up at least 10% over last year, when it was up 20% over the previous year. And so you got homicides, you got carjackings, kids getting shot outside of school.
How about in school?
What's that?
In school,
school,
too.
we never heard of killings in school by students. I think, and correct me if you disagree, all the media attention that the kids are getting who are shooting people is giving like a nice look to some other kids who thinks, gee, I can do that now.
the copycat syndrome.
Yeah.
Right. And it's
Well,
not it's not just what they see on TV, it's the social media. They
Yeah.
follow social media that promotes this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite dangerous. Now, there's 340 million people in the country. Certain amount get killed, they get pushed around, get shot at, what have. But the damage to all of this is the anxiety it places in the general public. We have,
Right.
I work for Mr. Greenberg. He has a large, he's got hundreds of people that go to work in New York, and they're fearful because of what they see and what they hear. And that's different than when my wife lived in New York with me. She wasn't afraid there was nothing to be fearful of. But today you
Where
walk.
did you live when she lived there?
What's that?
Because I know you've been together for, what, 60 years or something?
Yeah. This year is our 60th anniversary year.
60. Oh,
And
you only look like you're 50.
well, we renew the contract 10 years at a time. So,
We just-
but you really have to be on your toes. And schools are a very dangerous thing. Kids come in with a weapon, and you got a problem. They may not use the weapon in school, but they'll hide it in the bushes and go out and use it after night. We had that in Washington, D.C. But you can see it on TV every night.
Yeah,
and-
every night, that's what they have.
So I think it's the need to be to have perspective, to be alert to your surroundings, to know where you are and where you shouldn't be, and to be alert. I think is just downright good advice, and to a level where you didn't have to if it were 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But it is an issue, and it's not even defunding the police. That's not, they get defunded or whatever, but there's very little support for the police. The NYPD, I think last year they had 1,000. When someone joins, police department, they join for a career. They want to stay in it for 20 years, then they retire, get their annuity and what have you. They don't think about leaving prematurely. But last year, I believe it was 1,000 cops out of the NYPD. They left before they qualified for the retirement. That's virtually unheard of.
Really?
Because they're
And
getting
so,
shot at constantly. And,
yeah,
and
well,
they're not
it's
appreciated. I don't think it's just in New York. I think it's everywhere.
oh yeah. I mean, I happen to know New York very well, but it's a national problem. Whether it's St. Louis, whether it's Austin, Texas, whether it's Oakland, California, LA. It's pretty much Washington D.C. Obviously, Chicago.
Yeah.
With their 26 shootings there over the weekend.
Boy, I
so-
gotta tell you something. The Lawyer Money and You, which we are, nonprofit, we have a book and a saying, police officers are our friends. We tell all our interns, you see a policeman, even a fireman, you thank them for their service. They're very important. And we've done books, custom-made coloring books for the police and for them to give out. We've done over 24, and then it started to stop and they're afraid. They go, no, it's not time. But, we're going to have to wind up. I don't know why it goes so fast with you. I just want to let everybody know why, why Commissioner Cohen, who we're so proud to be part of, his birthday's February 24th, and we've known him over 50 years.
Yeah.
Happy belated birthday.
Well,
Birthday.
that's why President Putin chose that day to invade Ukraine. I
That's
think it was
right.
either that or he was celebrating Roberta's dog's birthday.
Or your birthday. When you said President Putin, it sounded like you were going to go President Poop's birthday. Maybe that should be his birthday.
Okay, we have to
Camille,
wind up
up to
now.
you now.
Thank you very much, David. We learned so
Okay.
much. And we'll have another episode because this is very important. There's much more that we haven't talked about. And to our viewers, thank you very much for watching. I'm sure you're interested in more. We will have David Cohen back. And in the meantime, please let us hear from you because remember, this is your show, The Law, Your Money, and You.
You.